Very well. All right, fellas. By the way, since this is going to be a little more casual, this masterclass, Steve and Edward, please hop in if you have any questions about anything that I'm going to present to you, to you gentlemen. So please hop in and interrupt me at any time. If you want some clarification, if there's something that you'd like me to expand, if there's something you don't, please do so. What I'm going to focus on today as a topic of the masterclass is blogging. Now, the fact is that unfortunately, most investors don't use the power of blogging to its fullest potential, or in fact, many don't even blog. And so I'm a proponent of using blogs in order to drive traffic to your websites. Edward, you had mentioned that you have several websites, I believe, and you're in charge of different, or you work with different divisions. So this is something that I think you guys could really benefit from. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen for a sec. And so let me go here and share screen. And I'm going to go into this presentation. By the way, the presentation that I'm going to give today, you can visit this site which I'm at right now, and you can actually take a look at it. It's there. It's there for you if you want to refresh on what I'm going to talk about today. It's actually here on the site. Graham will give you some links to it so you can take it. But what I wanted to focus a little bit in the idea of today's masterclass is to talk about, as I mentioned, the power of blogging, but specifically how to leverage blogging in order to get motivated seller leads. And Edward and Steve, I think that's exactly what you guys are, in the process of doing. Now, there's a science behind blogging. So before I even get into that, let me just talk about the benefits. So there is two ways that we as real estate investors work. We use those, what I like to call, that hamster wheel marketing, which is effective, by the way. So we rely on hamster wheel marketing primarily to drive traffic to our websites in order to drum up business. And the tactics that you use in hamster wheel marketing, which are tactics such as Craigslist, Steve, placing ads in your local media, text messaging, cold calling, all these tactics that you see here are tactics that work. Door knocking, direct mail. The reality is that these tactics work, but there's two other truths. One of them, the moment that you stop cold calling, that's it. You're not going to get any more leads. The moment you stop sending direct mails, you're not going to get any more leads. Or you place a commercial, that commercial will have its effect, for a couple of days, maybe for a couple of weeks, if it's it's really a commercial that hits home. But after that, that's it, it's gone. So we have to, as real estate investors, unfortunately, we're in that hamster wheel marketing where we're using all these tactics, whether it's paid advertising, driver dollars, or what have you, in order to drum up business. And my suggestion is not to do away with that. That's something that you should, incorporate. You'll find what the sweet spot is and where you feel more comfortable with. But I also recommend really to employ blogging. Blogging is a way for you to be able to use the power of evergreen marketing. It's a way for you to be able to use the power of evergreen marketing. But beyond that, it's a way for you to, and HubSpot made this a well-known term, in order to bring in inbound marketing. So the tactics in what I like to call that hamster wheel marketing, those are all outbound efforts. And so you're reaching out to people. I would even say interrupting them, if it's a direct mail or a cold call, and you're reaching out to a large, you throw out a wide net if you're doing direct mail. For sure, if you're placing an ad in the Super Bowl, you're throwing out a very wide net. So maybe 10% of your audience is interested in what you have to say. Direct mails, I think they have a 1%, even a little bit less, return on the mails. So that's why you've got to send tens of thousands of mailing pieces in order for it to be effective. Having said that, blogging is more, it's inbound marketing. And the beauty of blogging, especially if you create evergreen blogs, that's something that's going to give you leads, not just when you publish the blog the first day, but it'll give you leads literally, weeks, months, and years down the line. That's number one. The second advantage of blogging, well, there's tons of advantages, but the second major advantage is that it's inbound marketing. So it's not that interruptive marketing. People will Google a query in their browser, and something to the effect of, let's say something to the effect of, how do I sell my house for fast in what was your market, Steve?
Northern Indiana, Southern Michigan, okay. Right there by Notre Dame.
Okay, so how do I sell my house fast in Michigan? Let's just say, for argument's sake. And if they Google anything near that, and I'll show you examples and what have you, but if they Google anything, if they're looking for a solution to a problem, how do I sell my fire damaged house? I inherited a property, what are my next steps? How to sell a water damaged property, or whatever the case may be. And if they're Googling that and they find you as a resource, they find you as a point of contact, that you're educating them, you're informing them, then that's a great connection. You've got somebody who raises their hand by virtue of clicking on and reading your blog. You have somebody who is a warm or maybe a hot lead, and you have somebody that will consume your content, will read your blog, and you can position yourself by virtue of blogging as the professional, as the go-to person, and as the real estate investor who can solve their problems. So it really turns the idea of marketing, turns the idea of bringing in leads, because that's what we're all after, is to get those leads, especially in today's market where the economy looks like the pendulum has definitely swung and it's a buyer's market. But it's a way for you to be able to bring in those leads. The beauty of it is not just that you bring in those leads, as I mentioned today. When you blog, you're creating content, putting out content on the internet that people can read, visit, could search out, could find for a long time to come. So having said that, let me just give you an idea of what is the science, what are kind of the tactics and the tools you need to use. By the way, I'm going to share with you several free tools that I use when we create blogs, and take advantage of them because they're really effective tools that we use. So let me go right into the idea of blogs and blogging. But before I do that, I just wanted to second. And we had somebody that came in. Graham, who's the other person that hopped in?
Max jumped in.
Very well. Hey, Max. Good morning. Good morning. Glad you could join us this Saturday morning.
Thank you. I apologize about that.
Oh, no problem, no problem. We were chit-chatting a little bit before. Now we're getting into really the meat of the matter. So we have a smaller crowd this morning. So Max, if at any point you want to interrupt me, please do. If you have any questions, clarifications, I'm all here for you. So having said that, the first thing what you want to do when you blog is to create a compelling title. It's important to keep in mind that the title of the blog is what's going to draw people in. So you want that title to be the hook that draws people in for them to want to read further, to continue reading the blog. Ideally, in the title, there's certain things that I always recommend you include, but among them, obviously, the keywords, a keyword, that's number one, or a keyword phrase. The keyword is what the title is going to be about. And I'm going to talk about the keywords and semantically related keywords and what have you in a few minutes, but that's important. So in that title, you want to describe what the article is about, but describe it using keywords. In addition to that, you want to make sure that it's a compelling title. So, I mean, that sounds all nice, but how do you make sure about that? That's where I recommend, it's a free tool. It's called coschedule.com. They have a really neat tool, which is a headline analyzer. And so what you can do is literally visit coschedule.com. You input the title into their into their website, and it will give you a feedback, and it'll tell you, what the word balance is, if the length is appropriate, if there's keyword density, what's the sentiment, and it'll guide you, and it'll recommend other synonyms, other words in order for you to create a compelling title. That's pretty easy, kind of in it of itself. But here's where some folks who blog get lost, and that is the fact that you have to make sure to understand that when you're writing blogs, you're writing it for two audiences. You're writing it for those motivated sellers, and that's your primary, and that's the main focus. Never sacrifice the formatting or the keyword density. Never sacrifice, never overdo, never stuff it with keywords to satisfy your second audience. Your second audience is that Google algorithm. It's that Google bot. But what you need to do is strike a balance and understand that when you're writing, you need to keep in mind that you're writing for those two audiences. You're writing for the visitor who's going to visit your website and read your blog, and you're writing for Google. Having said that, one thing that you want to keep in mind, and I'll mention keywords several times this morning, is to use keywords in your title, to use keywords in the body of the blog, ideally to use it within the first 20%, the top 20%, the first few paragraphs of your blog, and then to sprinkle those keywords throughout the blog. Those keywords are indicators that help the Google bot understand what your blog is about. Now, we're going to employ a lot of other tools to help Google understand what we're doing. I'm saying help understand. Other people use the word SEO. Same thing. You're using those SEO tactics in order to help Google understand what the blog is about. Now, again, it's nice for me to say, okay, guys, make sure it's keyword-centric topic. And if I were to end it there, you'd be like, all right, he didn't tell me anything. So I'm going to show you some free tools that I use, that we've used in order to find those keywords. And it's actually really funny because you see it every day. When you enter a predictive keyword, rather, when you enter a query into Google, Google will spit out a predictive keyword phrase for you. And sometimes when I've had even my own copywriters, they're like, Patrick, you asked me to write a blog about X. Any other suggestions? I say, look for the predictive keyword phrases, because Google is going to give you the keywords, and it's going to give you the subject that you can write about. If I were to type into Google how to sell a house, I don't even need to type anymore, and Google will give me that needs repairs. That's a blog right there. How to sell a house that isn't paid off, but I don't know about that if that's such a great blog. But anyhow, how to sell a house that's in a trust. That's a great blog that you could write. Or how to sell a house that needs. It says how to sell a house that needs to be moved. Well, that's unique, but you get the idea. So if I were to type in how to sell my house fast in Missouri, and I'm sure that Google will give me some predictive keyword phrases. And what you want to do, if I'm going to write a blog about how to sell a house that needs repairs, then I would add one other thing to that. If that was the title of my blog, I would make it a long tail keyword, and I'll explain the difference between a long tail keyword and a short tail keyword. But I might write something like how to sell a house that needs repairs in Missouri. Now what I've done is I've made that blog title hyperlocal. So there's a hyperlocal focus. It's a long tail keywords. It's a long tail keyword phrase. And I'll explain to it in a second why that's so important. So I've checked off those two boxes. Now, before I go and talk about long tail keywords or what have you, there's another tool that you can use in case you want to find those keywords. And that's at the bottom of your query. Whenever you search for anything in Google, they're going to give you related searches. So and the example you have here, literally, I typed that, this is what I got as a result. How to sell a house fast in a slow market. Boy, that's really opportune for us now. How to creative ways to sell a house fast. So creative ways to sell a house fast in Missouri. you know, that's a perfect, I mean, to me, that's a perfect blog. And I'm employing those keywords in my title. All right, so I'm going to move on and talk about precisely the idea of long tail keywords. There's short tail keywords and long tail keywords. Unless you're We Buy Ugly Houses and they've got their franchise and they're all over the country, it behooves you to use long tail keywords in the title of your blog and throughout your blog. So I'll give you an example. And the example I usually use is of a pizza shop. If I'm in, let's just say I'm in Washington, D.C., and I type the word pizza as I'm driving through Washington, D.C., I guarantee you that what you're going to find is Pizza Hut and Domino's, Papa John's, all the big boys. That's what's going to be found. However, if I own a pizza shop in Washington, D.C., and I was an avid blogger and I blogged about pizza and different styles of pizza and what have you, and I use long tail keywords, things like, how to make the best Sicilian pizza in Washington, D.C., how to enjoy a pizza or how to reheat a pizza, best ways to reheat a pizza. And it's a blog that has to do, that's focused with to Washington, D.C. If I drive through Washington, D.C. and I type the word pizza, chances are that that pizza shop will land on the first page of the search engine results page, that search page, and chances are they'll even beat out people like Papa John's and people like, Domino's Pizza. The power of long tail keywords is that there's not that much competition for long tail keywords. And so if somebody types in the word sell my house in Missouri, then all the big companies that dominate the industry on a national level will definitely beat you out, Steve, for sure. But if I wrote enough content where I included a long tail keyword, how to sell a water damaged house in Missouri, how to sell a house fast in Missouri, and if I were to use that hyperlocal focus throughout my blog, then you have a much higher chance of being found on that search page than even We Buy Ugly Houses. So that's something else to keep in mind, that you want to find a keyword, that's the topic, and you want to make sure that you use long tail keywords, and that in those long tail keywords you make sure that you mention the market that you're working at. So this way you're not competing with the competition is less in that case. Now, in addition to keywords, there's something that is known as semantically related keywords. And it's just a fancy way of saying that they're phrases and keywords that are related to the topic, to the primary keyword. Again, you say, well, this is great, but where do I start? There's a free tool. It's called LSI Graph. And by the way, this free tool here, you can enter your primary keyword, and what it will do is it will give you suggestions. It'll suggest other semantically related keywords. When you write a blog, again, you want to use that primary keyword, but you can write a paragraph or two using semantically related keywords. Now, in fact, some of these semantically related keywords could be the title of a different paragraph inside of a blog. Now, why do you use semantically related keywords? I like to use them because it expands on my primary message on the topic that I'm trying to address in my blog. But beyond that, what it does is I'm able to explain that in different ways. I'm able to share that in different ways. Secondly, it's fantastic for SEO. And it's great for SEO because I'm helping that second audience, that Google bot, understand the content of the blog more clearly. When I have primary keywords and I use secondary keywords, I'm able to help that Google bot understand what my blog is about. So that's the second reason, that I like using what are called semantically related keywords. Now,
Tree, I don't.
Yes.
I on a roll. I wanted to ask a question. I put my hand up a while ago, so we might have to backtrack a little bit. I was just thinking, like in, say, for instance, we spoke to Steve before we come on about his market and all the, so the one before the long tail keywords, I just wanted to maybe use Steve's example, what he was talking about. I think if you just scroll up a bit more, when you get to the bottom of the Google search and you said that there was the, yeah, keep it, there it is, that one. So with that particular, that gives us an example of, firstly, you've got the title, the keywords of the title. Then this was the long tail bit at the back. Let's like a real live example of, you know, like how that'd work. Like Steve was saying, is in the Indiana market. So he might say, and he's looking for to pick up, say, sub twos and that, the people that might have be facing foreclosure. So how would you structure those keywords into a phrase to get it so that it goes up the SEO?
I would do two things. Number one, always mention your target market. So if it's Indiana, I would use the word Indiana in my title of the blog.
Yep.
Number one. Number two, I would use the word Indiana throughout the blog. When you mention the word Indiana throughout the blog, then again, that's an indicator to Google that, okay, so this is about real estate investment, but it has to do with Indiana. When you do that, and somebody who's in Indiana writes how to sell my house, in 7 days in Indiana, then the likelihood that yours, Steve, that your blog is going to come up high in that search engine results page is much greater. So a real live example would be, let's just take here this example. I like this. How to sell a house fast in a slow market. This is like so timely. How to sell my Indiana house fast in a slow market. You know, that you're using, we know what the topic is about, and we're using that keyword, that hyperlocal focus. If you write enough blogs using the hyperlocal focus, then you start getting traction, and then the Googlebot understands that what you're talking about has to do, it pertains to the motivated seller needs and people that have issues in Indiana. Now, you can even go on a county level. There's many investors that don't work in the entire state. They work on a county level. You can just mention the county, for example. Or even if you're in a large city, Charlotte, for example, let's say you're in Charlotte or you're in Dallas, you might want to write your blogs and use the Dallas as your hyperlocal focus. Use Dallas in order to create that long tail keyword.
So that's how it would look like, for investors. And you wouldn't need to go into the distress. You could just say how to sell fast, because someone that is facing foreclosure would want to sell fast, wouldn't they? So would that be enough?
Yeah. Or you could even just say, how to avoid a foreclosure, sell your house fast in Indiana.
So that'd be better. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah. By the way, does anybody have any questions about what I just said, other than yours, Graham? And Graham, if you have another question, please ask me. I guess that's a no.
Yeah, that's a no, I think.
Okay.
I mean,
okay.
The nice things, Patrick, is as you're bringing up the websites, we using multiple screens, I'm able to pull those other websites up and take a look at them, which is advantageous.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I'm going to continue. Did somebody want to ask something or no?
Yeah. This is Max. I think what Graham had asked was a question that I asked, because I'm in the North Carolina market and I don't focus on just one county. I focus across the entirety of North Carolina. So I was just curious as far as what would make sense for the title or blogs and things like that. But it sounds like you've already
I would just use the word North Carolina. Now, what I will tell you to do, in addition to that, and this is a very effective strategy, kind of going off the topic for a second, but it's a very advantageous strategy. Is I would use, if you have a website, I would keep my website. This is my primary website. I would create different home pages for each county that I work in. And what I would do on the home page of, would you name me 2 counties, by the way, that you work in, just out of curiosity?
New Hanover and Wake
Okay.
County.
Okay, so I would do a homepage where I have a picture maybe of the Wake City Hall, maybe a picture of something that's unique to Wake, and I would use the terminology, the phrases, the description, and I would say I'm an investor in Wake County, and I would use that homepage to drive traffic for people that are in Wake County. In my second county, I would personalize that homepage with a picture of something that's well known in that second county, and so forth and so forth, and so on. And the fact is that many of the investors that work in many markets, they'll include a separate homepage for each market that they're in. So if you're in Florida, you'll have a homepage for Miami, maybe one for Brickell, maybe one for Fort Lauderdale, and so forth and so on. You'll notice that the bigger websites, the bigger investors, at the footer of their website, they'll have the names of different markets that they work in. The reason they include that is really more for SEO. And the fact is that most of us don't go to the footer and start clicking occasionally, but it's more for SEO because you want to use what's known as linking. You want to be able to create external links. And when you create that net, that cobweb of linking from one of your websites that's, let's say in Miami County, and you link that to your other websites, then you're helping to get, that's an SEO tactic, which kind of, dovetails back into what I was going to talk about the power of linking, specifically the power of internal linking and external linking. Now, I'm not talking about backlinking. That's a whole different science, and it kind of complicates things. So what you'll notice as I'm talking about are things that are really practical, simple, almost so they're intuitive, and then for those things that are not that intuitive, there's some tools, as I mentioned, that I've shared with you. But one thing that I like to do with blogs is to use internal linking. What I just mentioned before is a type of internal linking when you link out to other home pages that you have of the same website. So the idea of internal linking is the following. Again, internal linking, I do this for two audiences. I do this for the visitor that comes to my website, and I also do this for Google. When somebody visits your website, they're reading an article, advantages of selling your house to an investor versus listing your property. Just say that. And they're reading through there, and maybe in the body you mentioned, you can sell your house through an investor. The advantages of it, they'll buy your home as is, whether your home has, water damage or has termite problems or has foundation issues. Well, each one of those terms, foundation issues, water damage, termite damage, you could hyperlink that text to another one of your blogs. So if you've written a blog about how to sell your house with foundation issues, then you can link out your blogs. And what you want to do ideally is that there's that spider web, as I mentioned, of links between different blogs that you've written. That's really powerful for several reasons. Number one, it's a way for you to show your expertise. Because if I'm reading about how to sell my house, to a real estate investor versus a real estate agent, and in it, it just so happens that my property, the reason I'm looking for that is because it's fire damage, and you've written an article on that, then, and if you hyperlink it, then chances are I'm going to click through and read that second post, read that second blog post. And what it does is it, as I mentioned, positions you as a person, a knowledgeable person, a person with authority, a person that's providing the reader with some solutions. Now, the second reason you want to do that is, again, for Google. What Google does is when they see that you've got content that's interlinked, that's internally linked, that's a plus because they see that there's related content that you've created. Beyond that, When somebody lands on your website and they're reading a post and then they find a second post that is interesting, they're going to spend more time on your website. And that's one of those primary indicators to Google that if people are spending time on your website, and they don't have to spend an hour, but they're spending, 5 or 10 minutes, then that's a positive sign for Google. That's an indicator that the people that are reading your content are finding it valuable. And ultimately, what Google wants to do is to provide the most valuable content for those search queries. So that helps you in that, service page. So keep that in mind. That's really important. I also like to employ what's known as external links. The idea of external links is pretty much the same logic. And what I'll do is at the end of the blog article, I'll include more helpful tips and resources for understanding and avoiding closing delays. So this was the topic of the blog article. And I've linked out externally to other high authority websites. Now, what do we do? Or why do we do this? Because you're able to provide additional valuable information to your reader, number one. Number two, this is another indicator to Google that if you're externally linked to other high authority websites, then your content is something that's relevant and it's something that's valuable. And that's, you kind of check off another box in that SEO strategy. So I always say, make sure that you use internal and external links. It's a really powerful, SEO strategy. Now, we'll switch over for a second. I mentioned the fact of using, hyper-local focus. And I never do this. I'm going to do this for the first time. But I'm going to read it. It says, hyper-local focus tends to produce the fastest SEO results, which is the case. Why? Because the competition for local searches are less competitive. And so with that in mind, we include, and this was to answer one of the questions this morning, you want to include your town and city, or your county and state, or if you're in a state level, the entire county. So that's important, as I mentioned earlier, about using that hyper-local focus. Now, for a second, I'm going to just switch and go in a whole different direction for a second, talk about blog formatting. That's something that I think people have become more sophisticated. Years ago, you would open up a blog article and there'd be a wall of text there. People weren't so conscious of blog formatting. And you want to make sure that you're always conscious when you're writing a blog to make sure that you employ different formatting so that the content that the people are reading is educational, is informative, but it's pleasant to read. It's enjoyable. And one of the ways that you can do that is by including GIFs, including subheadings, including images and bullet points. That way, when somebody visits your website, it's pleasant to the eye, and it's easy to consume. That's really, really important to keep in mind when you're writing a blog, that it's not just the copy that's important, it's the blog formatting. Now, of course, as everything that I discussed this morning kind of there's a secondary reason. I like to, as a part of the blog formatting, I like to include 2 or 3 images inside of each blog. The reason I include the images is beyond the fact that it helps in blog formatting, and I'll show you examples of that a little bit later. But beyond that, what's important about images are indexed by Google. So if I've written a blog and I've included 3 images, each one of those images is a portal for people to be able to discover my blog, to find out about my blog, and then ultimately through my blog, discover my website. So I always use attention-grabbing images in every single blog. That's also why I like to include infographics. I like to include infographics for 2 reasons. My primary audience, because it explains the topic of my blog in a different way, in a more, some people can like to see are more visual. So it explains the topic of it in a visual way. So know the difference of selling to a company that buys houses versus listing with an agent. So that's the first reason. Second reason, it's a summary of what I've presented in the blog. But the real reason behind it is an infographic is also indexed by Google. So now I've got another portal. There's another way people can find my blog article. It's another way that people can find the content that I've written. So I always use images. I'll use GIFs from time to time. I'll include infographics in some of the blogs that we've written in the REI content. In fact, we even include videos. And so that's another way for people to be able to consume your content. And for those that, you know, are more visual, video is phenomenal. Up to this point, does anybody have any questions? And if not, I'll continue. One thing to keep in mind, and I mentioned this from at the beginning, is when you write, to make sure that 95% of your blogs are evergreen. So you may want to talk about something that's timely, something that's recent. You might want to talk about how to sell your house and write a blog that has to do with today's market. Maybe when we were in COVID, you could have written a blog about selling a house during COVID. But mainly you want 95% of your blogs to be evergreen, so that if I'm giving a solution to a problem that a motivated seller may have, let's just say how to sell an inherited home, the information that you're sharing there is not going to go out of style in a couple of weeks. The recommendations that you're giving on how to sell, a termite damaged property, that's not going to go out of style in the next couple of months. So they're evergreen, which means that somebody can visit your blog today or 5 years down the road, and the advice, the information you're sharing with them is going to be relevant. So that's something also to keep in mind, to make sure that when you write your blogs, make sure that the bulk of them are evergreen, so that you can take advantage of, as I mentioned earlier, the fact that you can capture leads, and not just today, but for a long time, for a long time to come. Now, what I'm going to do is just hop for a second over onto this homepage of this website and show you some of the titles that we have on some blogs, and then show you a blog and show you exactly what I've spoken about and how at least how we incorporate that. So I'll show you here for a sec as an example. Here are some examples of some of the titles, some of the blogs that you can see. So how to easily sell a house with foundation problems, or how to sell a house with water damage, or how to sell a house fast in your town or city. And here you have an idea. You might want to use them as a swipe file and get some ideas of different things. 5 effective tips to sell a house during a divorce. It can go on and on. Now, but what do we do? Whenever we write a blog, as I mentioned, we incorporate everything that I spoke about in the blog, and you'll see it here clearly. I'm an investor out of Miami, so that you'll see the word Miami there. Reasons why my house is not selling and how to fix them, Miami, Florida. So here we have got the title, we've got the keyword, and we have it's hyperlocal focus. And I like to include that in the primary image. Sometimes they call that a hero image, and primary image would be for a blog. And then I'll include that in the title, and you'll notice that I'll include it even right in the first paragraph. It's frustrating when you're Miami, Florida, home is on the market, et cetera, et cetera. So I'll use that hyperlocal terminology throughout the blog. And then I give the reason. So I talk about, why your home may not be selling, and you'll see the first image that it's included there. I'd like to include always at the bottom, I include a link to my website, so that if somebody visits this, sees this article, they find this image rather on Google, and not only can they click through on the image and be sent to this blog, so it's a portal, as I said, but in addition to that, they'll see what the title of my website is. So I like to include that, as I mentioned. I also like to include GIFs. It makes it more dynamic. I always use a secondary, a third, or even a fourth image, if I can. So here's another image that's included in this blog. The formatting, as you see, is attractive. It kind of draws you in. Throughout the blog, I'm using, here we have an example of internal linking. So I'm internally linking to other blogs that I've created. And then, of course, every single blog must have a CTA. So I'll include, my company's name, the phone number as a CTA, so that we can tell the reader what the next step should be. In this particular blog, you see there's an infographic that's included there. And I believe that we also have external links at the bottom. So this is more tips and resources to help sell your Miami, Florida home. And I go to the Huffington Post, I go to HomeLight. So these are high authority websites. So here you can see everything that I discussed this morning in play. You can see how we incorporate all of that in order for the blogs to be, interesting, in order to drive in people, for them to want to consume the blog, and in order for it to be SEO optimized. Now, I'll go into one other thing, and then I'll end it. And then I'd love to, see if you have any questions. But what I did want to mention is, what is the advantage of blogging? And here are the advantages. Number one, it helps you drive traffic to your website. Obviously, if you write enough blogs, each blog serves as a spring, as a push to help you increase your Google ranking for the blogs, and then for your whole website, for the whole website as well. In addition to that, it helps in these other ways. It helps you build brand awareness. It helps you build your authority, because people see that you have answers to their issues, to their problems. And obviously, along the way, as they're visiting your website, as they're clicking through to your About Us section, as they're seeing testimonials, then you're able to build trust with your visitors. So those are some of the advantages of blogging. Now, having said that, I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm wondering, Graham, if you had any questions, or Max, Edward, Steve, anything that you had in mind?
I was just going to say to the guys that are in here, if you've got any questions, ask now. I've got a couple, but you guys go first. It's, if you guys want to go first with any questions, and then I'll ask mine at the end. Yeah. So even Steve, I don't know if you've got any questions.
I've got a couple ideas on that. I mean, just looking at Patrick's website for the package and stuff like that, a couple of the off-the-wall ideas. I'm typing them up right now. So jump in, Graham, and take a couple questions, and then I'm going to shoot Patrick an off-the-wall idea. Let's see if we can make it.
The first thing, Patrick, is this can be used in conjunction with your social media too, can't it? It can be all connected to a certain point. Like, blogging's more for the website, but also social media drives stuff back to your website, which increases your blogs, doesn't it? So that's something that you know about. And I'm just segueing to the guest next month is Janae Ortiz, who does the same sort of thing, but in social media. So you can cross-pollinate those to a certain degree, can't you?
Yes, in fact, one thing that I would recommend for those of you that are either blogging or want to start blogging is when you publish your blog, to do several things. Number one, to share your blog on social media. You can literally share the blog on social media so that people will click through to read your blog. If you have an email list, if you have a CRM, and you've got, motivated sellers that you've stayed in contact with, email them a copy of your blog. If you do that on a consistent basis, you'll be able to drive traffic back to your website. If you've got a list of several hundred people, maybe that are in a CRM, that are clients that haven't pulled the trigger yet on selling their home, and you send them this a weekly blog, or if you want to send it every 15 days, you want to send them a link, an email. You're positioning yourself, as I mentioned, as an authority. Beyond that, it's a way for you to stay top of mind with those people that might be in your CRM. Aside from that, back to what Graham says, is yes, it's a way for you to be able to drive traffic from different social media to your website. And people are not going to visit your website because you ask them to visit your website. You always, for human nature, what's in it for me? But they will visit your website if they see that you're you have a blog article that's addressing maybe one of their pain points, one of their issues, then that'll be an incentive for them to go ahead and click through and visit your, read your blog and visit your website. And so, yeah, Graham, that's, if you can use social media, use your email list, it's a way for you to get more visitors to your website. And as I mentioned earlier, it's a way for you to be able to position yourself as an expert, and as I mentioned, stay top of mind. Because if you don't stay top of mind, sometimes the people will pick up the phone and call your competitor. And I was a real estate agent and broker for many years before I became an investor, and at least in that industry, I learned you've got to stay top of mind. Because if you're not top of mind, if you're not there, they list a house with the neighbor or with their aunt or what have you.
Yeah. So yeah, I was just sort of, that all ties in, and you mentioned the email list too. So if you've got an email list, everything's generating to drive traffic back to your website where your blogs are. And just one question, Patrick, where people click on read your blogs and click on all the things, does that increase your SEO as well if there's more activity? Does
Absolutely.
So that creates
Absolutely.
more. Yeah. So you want to drive people there through, because I mean, we all know, like, you got your story on Facebook, you got all these things. Then, the blog picture and some of the text could be part of your story. So people see it and it drives, get the website and it drives them back to the website. So that's what I'm sort of talking about. Everything you do social media wise is pushing it. If you're on TikTok or Instagram, you run your little reels that basically drives everyone back. So that's pretty much the easiest way, the quickest way that you could use social media to drive back to your website.
Absolutely. And the thing is that, and one thing is true, and for those of you that may have your own blogs, your own website rather, is that you can have the most beautiful website, the most SEO optimized website, in your market. But the fact is, it's not like the Field of Dreams. People will not visit you. It's just, you've got to give a reason for people to visit your website. And by far, there's two ways to do it. You open up your wallet and you pay, Google or Facebook to drive traffic to your website. The other way, the organic way, and it's more effective in the long run, is to blog. When you're putting out information on the internet to solve, people's pain points, they're going to visit your website. And that's really the best way to drive traffic to your website. And ultimately, why do you want to do that? Because you want to be able to convert, a percentage of those people into leads, and then of course, convert those people into a closed deal.
The last question I had, Patrick, was trying to listen together was, would you use little lead magnets even in your social media to drag people back to your website? Like just grab my 10 ways to get out of foreclosure PDF, go to www, just like a little ad in your reel or whatever. So the same thing, you're using lead magnets to get more activity. Would you tie that in as well?
Yeah, I mean, that's separate from blogging, but absolutely. One of the most effective ways for anybody that has a website to get traffic is by offering a lead magnet. And what's a lead magnet? It's a freebie. It's a fancy way of saying a freebie. But what's the freebie? It could be something, a checklist, a guide, maybe an ebook about how to sell your house, how to sell an inherited property. You create a 2 or 3 page, a checklist or guide. And then what you do on social media is you say, hey guys, I've got this guide that I'm giving out for free. If you're interested, just click on the following link. That link will take them to your website where they can download that lead magnet, that freebie. Now, by doing that, now you're driving traffic to your website. While they're there, they might click into your blogs, they'll click in to find out a little bit more about you and your company. And there's going to be a percentage of those that will find what you're sharing valuable and might click through and might want to chat with you about, maybe they're interested in selling their home, or may want to pick your brain about an issue that they have. And before you know it, you've gotten a solid lead and possibly, a new customer.
Yeah, I know that you specialize in copyright and blogs and all. I'm just trying to work out other ways to complement that, you know, to draw people to your blog on top of, you know, what you're saying. So they'd probably be the best ways to add value to the blog that you've got there, isn't it? To get more people to look at your blog.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yes.
All right. No worries. Thanks, Patrick. That's pretty cool.
Sure. Sure.
Anyone else got any questions about specific to what they do and how it could affect what they do? Like Max or Edward or Steve, like if you've anything, like if you, when you listen to that, were you thinking, how can I get that to work for my business, my particular business? Because yeah, feel free to just ask Patrick anything you got. If not, that's cool.
If not, we'll circle back to Steve because Steve had something he wanted to share with us.
Yeah.
I have a quick question. This is Max.
Max,
in regards to, can you repurpose the blog for that you utilize from the state and county level, but just reword it slightly or have different variations of content inside of the blog itself? So that way Google doesn't think it's the same like blog article being utilized across multiple sites.
Okay, so
does that make sense?
The answer is absolutely no, absolutely. In fact, it's kind of funny because I address that question. There's an issue or a reality that Google doesn't like for you to use duplicate content. You know, so in fact, and I address that when I talk about one of the services that we provide. And by the way, everything that I just shared with you, I'm going to enter you can visit, and I'll share that with you in a sec, a link for you to visit the website. I just showed you the page on the website. When you're on the website, you can go to the very top of the website, and let me just exit out of, here we go. So you can actually go where it says REI Content Starter Pack, and you can, you know, take a look at it and revisit what I spoke about. But one of the concerns that some of the people that are our clients is the issue of exactly that, which is duplicate content. And the fact is, and let me share my screen for a second, just give me a second. I'm going to share my screen real quick with you. Is that yes, you can use the blogs as a starting point. You can use a blog and you can change the image, change the city, maybe tweak some of the sections, maybe add a paragraph, and in that way you can use that same blog for different markets. The fact is that the reality is that blogging, as you can tell, it's difficult, it's complicated, it's not something that's easy. Many investors, they understand the value of blogging. It's not that they don't understand the value. The problem is that they just don't get around to doing it. You know, we're so busy, we're juggling so many balls in the air, running a real estate investment business, that unfortunately blogging kind of usually gets swept under the rug. And I've spoken to investors, some who are clients of mine, who said, I've been meaning to do it for months or even for years. It just, you know, I mean to do it. Maybe I've blogged a couple of blogs, and before I know it, I just don't have the time. So one of the services that we provide is what's known as the REI Content Packs. And so what we do is we have 52 blogs so that you can blog once a week for an entire year. And the blogs that we write, you know, I just showed you the strategies that we use. It's different topics, which I showed to you earlier today. So these are literally the blogs that are included in that REI Content Pack. And you know, these blogs have everything that I spoke about. It has the images, and many of them have infographics and video. What my team does is they go in, they'll personalize the videos with your intro and outro, with your company information, with your company's phone number, with your company's URL. They'll go in and they'll personalize all the images, all the infographics with your company's information, and then we turn over these 52 blogs with you. You can use these 52 blogs, as I mentioned, to blog for the next year. What I always recommend is that when you're blogging, to make sure that you enter your information inside the blog, you know, city, state, what we've done is the blogs are written, they're all done. We've highlighted in yellow where you need to enter the information about your company, about your market. And then if you want to take that blog, you've got 90% of the work done. You can tweak it a little bit, add a paragraph, maybe change something that pertains to your market. And in that way, you can differentiate that blog from other blogs that are out there. But this is an offer that that I like to make to you if it's something that interests you, that you have these blogs that are already written for you, so you don't have to worry about doing everything that we just explained to you. Secondly, and I sincerely mean this, if you want to reach out to me, I'm going to give you a link. You can reach out to me if you want to pick my brain and you want to talk one-on-one. There's no fee for that. I'll be more than happy to help you, to share information with you and help you if that's something, if you want to employ, the power of blogging moving forward.
Just one other thing too, with the I think Edward's had to jump out with Steve and Max. Is there anything else in that sort of digital marketing space that you wanted to ask Patrick? Because blogging is his speciality, but he does know a bit, like before Steve. Is there any other questions as well? Firstly, on what Patrick's talking about, and then if there's anything else while we're here that you can point in the right direction. Because it's a pretty wide range, digital marketing, and you guys might want to know a few things. Pick Patrick's brain on a couple other topics while we're here.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Patrick. Thank you for answering that question.
Sure.
I know Google My Business is also something that's really important as well to tie back with, I guess, your website and such. Just I know people also take a look at that sort of thing too. Do you have any feedback in regards to that?
Sure. As a matter of fact, if I'm going to send you, I'm going to share with you rather a contact information for me. I have actually 2 mind maps that I've created where you can enter your NAMS information. So your name, we want to make sure that across all of the Google, all of the different sites, that people can find your name, your address, your contact information. And I've created these 2 mind maps with a bunch of resources where you can go ahead and get your business indexed. The Google My Business is more important if you work in a specific market, and you have a physical presence as a real estate investor, then that's perfect. If you would please, and I'll share with you my contact information, just send me a quick email and I'll email you those mind maps. And what I would suggest is either you or if you have a VA to register your name in all the different indexing sites that are out there. There's dozens of them. That's a way to help you, so that if somebody Googles your business, they're going to see all these resources with information, with contact information, with your company information. So to answer your question, that's another also effective tactic that benefits your business, but also indirectly it benefits your website, because your website is tied to your business, and you can often include your URL to your website as well. So send me an email. I will definitely send out that mind map to you so that you can have that as a resource to include your company information in all the registries that are listed there.
Okay, much appreciated. Thank you.
My pleasure. Graham, did you want to continue, or shall I share my screen?
Just before you do, I was just going to say to Max, Steve's already done it. If you want a copy of this recording too, just chuck your email in the chat and I'll get to you one by sort of midweek next week. I'll get it out to you. I'll email it out to you. So if you just want a copy, Max, just chuck it in there as well. All right, Patrick, keep going.
I think, Steve, you had a question you had that you wanted, or a comment, or you wanted to add?
Yep. If you read the chat, it was just an idea. Graham got me thinking. I mean, it's always the who and not the how, and you've got the ability, and you've already got the demographics and the stuff in process. So I thought I would take a shot and see if you might want to get a little bit involved, and you could use it for teaching or testimonials. And then I was willing to pay for, like, put some money up front And what I'm looking for is to keep you on board because you already have the staff and the content where we could drive it into these local counties and keep you involved, because the problem is guys like me, we're good on innovation, we're good on acquisition, but it's the follow through of getting the right staff to keep the blogs up. It's easy to pull it out of my head. It's a whole nother thing to take the time and get it logged into stuff like that. And since we're in the Midwest, we're not cutting edge. So almost any of the stuff that you write works because we're about 2 or 3 years behind everybody else. So we take a lot of the content in the blogs, we just change it to my name and stuff and put it out there. I think it will generate it because you already have the staff and things like that. And you could experiment with a little bit of, which ones are polling, especially if you're getting all the analytics from whatever information you're blogging and going through, but yet enough of a compensation to pay some of your staff to stay in it. Because I'm looking more for a long time to set up. And if I can figure out the right way to do it, which I'm assuming you're a lot more techie than I am, so you can follow it. We're great closers. I mean, because we have a huge tool belt on how to close the deals. Okay. But the infrastructure, after I read that book from Ben about who, not how, is you find a couple of people that know what the hell they're doing in their area, you bring them in on part of the prize, and you let them run with what they're doing. Just in listening to you.
I like what you're saying, and in fact, that kind of segues into something else. And the answer is yes, and I'll expand it on it in a second. But it segues to something else that I was going to mention to everyone, which is the following: we provide a done-for-you service.
Right.
I've got a little over a dozen VAs that work for me because we provide various services to real estate investors and coaches and influencers and what have you. But one of the services that we provide specifically to those that, folks that purchase the REI content pack is that we can have a done for you service where we will upload the blogs to your website, whether it's on WordPress or Wix or whatever your website is. We work with dozens of different websites, different platforms. So if you're on let's say on WordPress, we'll upload the blogs to your website on a weekly basis. We'll do that for the entire year. And we charge $10 a blog to do that. So it's $40 a month, and you kind of set it and forget it. So, and what the people on my team do is they'll upload it on Sunday, they program it Monday morning, every single Monday morning throughout the entire year. We don't miss a beat. You'll get an email with a link to the live blog, so you can make sure that, I always like to say, I like people to hold my feet to the fire, make sure that we're doing what we're offering. And so every single Monday you'll get an email. You can see the live website, and it's a set it and forget it, program. So we do offer that option as well. If you're interested in that option, a year is a long time. Priorities change. You might hire a new VA. Maybe, somebody might come on board that's got extra time who can do that task for you. So I ask for a 6-month commitment. And then if you want to renew, we can do it for another 6 months. I know sometimes people that are building out teams, to hire a VA, and, that's a task they can give to the VA, for example. But if you want us to, blog for you and do that done for you service for the entire year, that's what, we can do that. Aside from that, and to answer your question directly, yes, we provide tons of services for different real estate investors, for different real estate investor coaches. So I'd love to chat with you on that. As I mentioned, we have a little over, a dozen VAs that have different specialties. And so we could definitely team up with you and help you drive traffic to your business.
Sounds good.
Because I think once you put a package together, guys like Graham know a lot of people that do what we do that are good operators, but they don't have the back room set up, to sit down and cut you a check for whatever, based on the service you're doing. It's inexpensive if it generates leads. And
I'll tell you one thing. Yeah, going back to what you're saying. And I'll tell you the price for the 52 blogs, it's $298. That's the investment for the REI content pack. as you can see on the screen, if you want to take a picture of it, you can, or if you just want to copy down the URL, you can visit REI Content Packs with the link that's above. I've got a special for those of you that are on, which is Graham 10% off. So if you type that in the discount code, you'll get 10% off of that $298. And for those of you that want to reach out to me and get the mind map, or if you want to reach out for us to talk a little bit more, whether it's about blogging or if you need some other services, you can reach out to me at www.patrickyepez.me, and you can just reach out and either call me or you can fill out the form there, and I'll email you. But I'm available 24/7. My phone numbers are there, so you can reach out to me if you'd like, or just email me. So that's there as well. So going back to the idea of the investment, what I tell investors, and I have some really nice success stories. You don't need to you don't need to get one extra deal a month to make that investment worth it. Now, I always tell people, and I don't want to set the expectations high and say you're going to make 4 or 5 deals because of blogging. But if you think about it, if you get only 2 or 3 deals in the entire year from blogging, because of our margins are so high, I mean, how many wholesale deals do you need to do? If you were to do, 3 wholesale deals, it could be an extra 30 grand in your pocket from the leads that came through blogging. Now remember, blogging is a set it and forget it. Specifically, if you hire us, we'll do all the work. It's there and it's working behind the scenes. If you're a fix and flipper, or even if you're a buy and hold person and you get a great deal, it'll pay. The ROI for that investment it's through the roof, because of the fact that our margins are so high. If you're a fix and flipper and you get an extra 2 deals the entire year. I'm not saying 2 deals every month, 2 deals the entire year. It could be an extra $40,000, $50,000 for an investment, which is really minimal. So I just wanted to kind of drive that point across as well. But going back, Steve, if you could share your email in the chat, I'd like to copy it and I'll reach out to you. And then you can also, reach out, give me your phone number or what have you by visiting patrickyepez.me.
Yep, and also same with Max. I think Max wanted to. I know Max has put his email in there as well, so Max can reach out to you as well, Patrick. Get the
Absolutely, sure, Max.
Stuff as well. Yeah, cool.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Steve, I see it right here. Very well. Let me just copy that. Very well. And I guess with that said, Mr. Graham Solomon covers all of our bases.
Just saving the chat there, so we've got all the information. Yeah, that was great. And thanks, Steve and Max, for coming in. We had big registration and not much of a turnout. So you guys got a bit of a private masterclass and just got to hang out with Patrick. And yeah, if you've got any other questions before we go, ask him. But if not, you can reach out to him. And a lot of the stuff probably would be better. Like Steve, you could really crunch the idea with Patrick, and the same with you, Max. Catch up with Patrick. Like he says, he's 24/7. I've never seen a guy that's works so much. Like, he's contactable all the time. So reach out to him. And thanks guys for coming on. I'll get you a recording of it so that if you want to go through any of the stuff, it's all there. And appreciate your time. And I'll reach out to you, Steve, about what we were talking about before. Before the thing. And just keep in the networking group that I've got, just keep networking with people and trying to, create those organic connections. And that's always good. All right, well, it's Saturday. You guys need to probably go and do some stuff, so I'll let you go. I appreciate your time. And Patrick, once again, thank you for coming in on your Saturday and spending time with us. It's been fantastic. And you give me some really good ideas there, linking up the social media and the emails and all that. So maybe the other guys are the same. They'll get a few ideas from it. So all right, we'll sign out, guys. I'll shoot you a copy, and good luck with everything. And maybe see you back in the group. Jump in the group and do some posting, and I'll see you in there.
Very well.
Thank you.
Steve, good to see
That
you.
sounds good.
Max, good to see you.
All right,
Have
guys.
have a great weekend.
Have a
Thank
great
you.
weekend. See you guys.
All right. Bye,
Bye,
Graham. Have a
guys.
good one. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.